We'll wait 2-3 minutes as always. Assembly hall college of priests used for. Could be anything. We presume it is an assembly hall. We presume it's a college of priests. Could be something else also. Big halls have been found. Could be anything. Good morning. Good morning. Ankur, they did use gold for jewelry. We'll discuss that when we'll discuss crafts in art and culture. Gold and silver was known to them. Vikram, there will be no mains practice question out of this area because it's a prelims area. Mains practice questions will be coming from art and culture. Aishwarya, it may be science and technology for you. I have no idea, but I'm taking Vedic Age. I'm not taking Vedic Age. I'm taking Modern India in the evening. I don't know the batches for which I'm taking it. Indus civilization, how about marriages again? With no textual references, Anchal is saying batch 7. With no textual references, we have no idea what it was. We presume that it may have been. You will find it in books. They will talk about a lot of things uh, about patriarchy, this and that, but all of that is conjecture. We can't really indicate anything with regards to that. All of it is guesswork. Intricate details you only get to know when you look at it via a prism of literature and things which they've written themselves. Ashwarya, you can change the batch via your dashboard. I think there's a way to do it. So you can change it. It will not show you science and technology, it will show you modern India. Early Harappa has no civilization. How they transform suddenly? It's not sudden. It's over hundreds of years. Not sudden. Devanagari script is very late. Devanagari script is medieval India. All these new scripts are very late. Very late. We are waiting 1 more minute and then we start. Again, Subhash, for some of you, it should not come as a surprise. Modern India is happening in the evening. And some of your friends are telling us on which batch option is on top right corner and this and that. You can change it. Batch 6 and 7 has modern history. Okay. Batch 6 and 7. Okay. Now, we have discussed yesterday. Only 2 classes have been done. Today will be the 3rd class. So we have discussed yesterday about the IVC, Indus Valley Civilization, and we've also understood the Aryan migration concept. And we tried to understand why are we discussing about the Aryans, who are a speech group, a linguistic group. Shreyank, all of that sun-dried and baked both were there. That is all art and culture. We will discuss that. Don't worry. These topics will be revisited in art and culture. Leave the culture part, understand the political part and the social economic part first. So, Indus Valley Civilization plus Aryan migration. And we discussed why we are discussing about the Aryans because of the fact that the Arya or the Aryans argued that they were the authors of the Vedas. And after reading the Vedas, we divide that social milieu into two parts, which is that one which is reflected in Rig Veda, and the second which is reflected in the Sama, Yajur, and Atharva Veda, which are called the later Vedic texts and the early Vedic texts. Now, what we need to understand now is how did everything look like? How did everything look like? Which is, we are now going to reconstruct the history of the Vedic age, and that is going to be a very significant aspect to our existence in India. So, I've already discussed Brahmi script with Sanskrit language was the first major language in which texts were produced in the Indian subcontinent. And Brahmi script is the mother of all scripts in India. I will show that to you when I will reach in Mauryan Empire. Now, let us talk about the early Vedic period. Now, in the examination, there is straightforward statement-based questions which come from this area. Straightforward statement-based questions, wherein you will be given statements, and they will be asking you, is it a correct statement or incorrect statement? Because early Vedic, later Vedic are very descriptive, very interesting periods. A comparative analysis and a characteristic based understanding of this early Vedic, later Vedic period is important. So let's first understand the early Vedic period. We are now discussing Vedic age. First, let's discuss the economic or the economy of early Vedic period. Now, if what was the occupation of the Aryans? What was the occupation of the Aryans? They were very good. They were cattle rearers, and basically they are what are called nomadic pastoralists. A pastoral economy is when you have cattle rearing and you look for different grazing lands. So very simply, the early Aryans who came to India in a way retained this occupation of their ancestors, and therefore the most standard economic activity was pastoralism. Pastoralism means animal husbandry and with very limited agriculture. Though we have words in the Rig Veda which refer to what we call as agriculture, very limited agriculture we find. So in a way, they are retaining the agro-pastoral nature or the pastoralist nature of their ancestors. And one thing is very clear, that wealth, the unit of wealth is, as it is, there is no currency, it is cattle, go. It is cattle. Whoever has more cattle is considered more wealthy. There is no trade, no currency. And in that sense, the Indus Valley civilization was more advanced. And this is the most interesting thing you need to understand, is that it is a regression when it comes to civilizational indicators. The Indus Valley civilization was modern, was extremely sophisticated, and it had internal and external trade. And this is why we believe that IVC had no connection with the Vedic age, because the Vedic age is a regression. There is no trade, and we have basically come back to the point of being pastoralists. Cattle is not bought, it is exchanged. And they will fight with each other for cattle, which I'll come to that when I talk about political. So there's no currency, there's no trade. Regression means going back. Progression means going forward. It's this way. No trade is basically a regression, going back. Because the economy of the IVC was very sophisticated. That is not true for the early Vedic period. Now, pastoralism is there with limited agriculture. Unit of wealth is cattle. There's no trade and there's no currency. So, in a way, it is believed that the society, though divided according to occupation, is egalitarian. Which is that because there is no concept of land or there is no concept of money, and because it is based on cattle rearing, there's a little bit of inequality in the society. If they have migrated, not invaded, they would not build upon IVC knowledge. No, because they have no interaction with the IVC. Didn't we found archaeological sources of education institutions IVC? No, we have not. College of Priests, it's College of Priests. That is something totally different. So scripture, they had a language, we don't know what they wrote. IVC is a gray area because we don't know their language. So please understand this point. Please understand this point. That pastoralism plus limited agriculture is their basic indicator. Unit of wealth is cattle because they're pastoralists. And the society in economic terms is equal because cattle more or less everybody has. And you already know that agriculture is the poison which basically creates inequality. So because there is limited agriculture, you can see that there is a little bit of simplicity in the economy itself. Now, can I talk about polity, and then you will actually understand how this society is actually more and more, or this polity is even more interesting. I unable to understand how IVC could decline and that progression. Again, I'm discussing in the terms of Indian history. That if IVC was a very advanced civilization, Vedic age was a regression when we talk about civilizational indicators. It's not that they were interacting. Please understand this point because a lot of you are not able to wrap around your head that IVC could decline independently and the Vedic people could come in independently. So please understand this point that this can happen. There could be very limited interaction between the IVC and the declining IVC and the coming up of Vedic age. So that is not something which is given. While first urbanization is Indus Valley civilization, this is not an urban civilization. This is not an urban civilization. This is not an urban culture. So their Aryans own. It's not owning cattle. It's about controlling cattle. Please again remove your notions of 2023. You don't always need to own cattle. You can also have cattle as a community. So the unit of wealth is not about who has more cattle. It's about that the wealth of the community is the cattle itself. So please understand that it's just that because they are pastoralists, they will exhibit egalitarian politics. One of you asked me that your anthropology teacher somehow is saying that Indus Valley civilization is egalitarian, and this is the argument which I gave you, that in agricultural societies egalitarianism is very very rare and it is very problematic to argue something like that. So they can write anything they want to, they can argue anything they want to in anthropology, but that does not become true automatically. In agricultural societies there will always be complexity in society, and that automatically indicates to the concept of a stratified society. It's a stratified society. Let me talk to you about polity and you will understand what is the basic scene. So don't predict, stop predicting, listen to me. So I'll tell you, they indulge in war and conflict. I'm coming to that. Okay. Economically, pastoralist, limited agriculture, wealth, no trade, wealth is cattle, no trade, no currency, and society is egalitarian. Now, one more thing which you need to know economically is, and this is what makes Aryans for sure not Indus Valley people, is that the Vedic Aryans or the early Vedic people knew iron smelting. They had knowledge of use of iron, but did not use it extensively. So IVC is copper. It's a Chalcolithic civilization. They are really a next stage because Vedic Aryans, when they were migrating, these nomadic pastoralist people knew how to have or how to smelt iron. This confirms, and you are not going to challenge that, this confirms that there is no connection between the Vedic Aryans and the Indus Valley people, because then declining phase of IVC should have yielded iron, which it hasn't. Which it hasn't. So very simply, economically, they are very different. And in our understanding, it is a regression because Indus Valley civilization was an urban civilization. This is not an urban civilization. There's a little bit of ruralization because they are based on pastoralism. The real indication of how they are basically not connected, and this is the point I'm trying to emphasize here, they're not connected to the IVC because of the fact that, very simply straightforward, their political setup is also very different. You tell me that in the absence of proper agriculture, will the polity exhibit in a way a more democratic notion or a more what we call authoritarian concept? It will represent more democratic notion. And you can see what we argue is that the polity of the early Vedic period was tribal polity or chieftain, wherein the Rajan term is indicative of the protector of people and cattle. It is not, he is not the protector of territory. He is the protector of people and cattle. And Rajan, different tribes wage war against each other for cattle, which is called cattle raiding. They have, their wealth is cattle, so they will fight over cattle. And over and above that, Rajan is non-hereditary and selected by the tribe for his experience and age. And more than that, Rajan, no taxation, and the only thing which exists is a thing called Bali, in which it's a voluntary offering to the king out of respect. It's a voluntary offering. It's not that you have to always give something to the king or to the Rajan. If you want to, you can. If you don't want to, it's totally your call. You respect the Rajan, you can give something to him. It's a voluntary offering. So very simply, you can see that the Rajan is a term which is used for a tribal chieftain. The terminology which is used is Rajan. And that Rajan does not indicate of a king, but of a chieftain. Please don't complicate it. I can see all of you writing in the chat box. I'm asking you to de-learn. So stop trying to push your notions. When I will call them a king, they will be kings. Right now, the terminology which is used in the Rig Veda is Rajan. And Rajan does not indicate a king, but indicates a chieftain. Chief is different from a king. He is selected from the people. He is the first amongst equals. So please understand this point, that the political setup is not based on a king controlling territory. Today, the Prime Minister's jurisdiction is bound by Indian citizens or bound by the boundaries of the Indian Republic. You tell me. The sovereignty of the Constitution is bound by the boundaries of the Indian Republic, which is that it is a territory in which you can actually, it is the territory of India that the Constitution works. As soon as you go into international territories, it doesn't, and then foreign nation doesn't. This is not the way the Rajan's power is working. The Rajan's power is on the other side, not related to the area which they are. It's about the people who he controls. So he is the protector of the people and the cattle and their basic unit of wealth, which is cattle itself. So the Rajan is non-hereditary. Non-hereditary means that it's not that once I become the Rajan, my son is going to become the Rajan. No. You need to be competent. You need to be a person who shows experience. You are a very old member of the chief, so you understand what is happening. So the point is, this is very standard indicative of how tribal societies till today exist. Tribal societies till today exist like this only, wherein there are chiefs who control the society, but they are not hereditary kings. They are just first among equals who are trying to guide the society in a certain direction. Now, understand this correlation, because you need to understand it. Because it is pastoralism and the unit of wealth is cattle, it is very clear that the polity is exhibiting this. The polity is exhibiting a quality which is linked to non-land based or cattle based or simplistic societies, wherein there is not too much inequality and everybody is more or less equal in that sense. So the political setup, the most important point is there's no taxation, there's no territory, only people. And over and above that, the Rajan, his job is not to rule, but is to guide the people. But it's not that the Rajan was the only institution of administrative control or political setup. Under the Rajan, everybody is following me till this point. There are 3 councils. Everybody is with me till this point. Eldest and most experienced, as per NCERT, sure. NCERT is not going to say something else. Okay. If iron smelting would have been known to IVC, then it would have yielded their economy. So I don't know what you mean by it, but no, iron smelting was not known to IVC. Okay. Now, when we talk about the Rajan, it's not that he's the only political institution. He has 2 very important councils under him. These are called the administrative councils or administrative institutions. One is called the Sabha and the other one is called the Samiti. It's called the Sabha and the Samiti. And herein, Sabha was the council of all elders in the society. Women were allowed to be a part of it. On the other hand, This is a more exclusive body. All very important elders of the society are together. And this is the council of all members, or you can call it an assembly of all members of the tribe. And again, women are allowed. Very simply, this is an exclusive body, and this is a body of all members. Can you see a parallel in our Panchayati Raj institutions? In our Panchayati Raj institutions, what would be equivalent to the Sabha? What would be the equivalent to the Sabha? The Gram Panchayat, which is the 5 members itself, and the equivalent to the Samiti would be very good, Gram Sabha. So, by becoming or being on the electoral roll of that Panchayat, you become a part of the Gram Sabha, and you can get elected to the Panchayat from the same body. So the Panchayati Raj institutions actually exhibit this type of democratic institutions. And these are called the earliest examples of democracy. Because in both these, Rajan has to deliberate with these two bodies. Both are deliberative administrative bodies. The responsibilities are administrative. They are, you can think of the Rajan as a Sarpanch, sure. So, representative body, they are administrative, they're deliberative bodies. But there is one more body. You can use it, Priyanka, sure. There's one more body which is called Vidhata. Vidhata is not an administrative body. Is not an administrative body, but it is a cultural body. Wherein the tribe, or rather, when the tribe meets for ritual and ceremonial purpose, it is called Vidhata. Basically, simply, when the Samiti meets for cultural reasons, it's called Vidhata. It's called Vidhata. So if you look at it, there is Sabha, Samiti, Vidhata, and the Rajan presides over all of them. But Sabha, Samiti are administrative bodies. Vidhata is a cultural body, and Sabha and Samiti, in that sense, this is an exclusive elder body. This is every member. This is also every member. So are we clear with regards to Sabha, Samiti, Vidhata? Yes, Palak, will talk about that. We're coming to position of women, don't worry. Yes. So I have discussed with you economy and polity. Economy is pastoralism. Polity is tribal chieftain polity with assembly and councils. Every member of the tribe in Samiti, kids are also involved. Munna, now that is something which I presume you would understand, that kids would not have a say in deliberating bodies. It is, don't make me write adult members of the society. This is presumed. And women had access to all these bodies. Women are there, all three. Now this brings us to society. Now when we talk about society, if there was equal society, so it is possible women got the status of Rajan. See, egalitarianism does not mean that it is non-patriarchal. Please understand this point. It is patriarchal only. Patriarchy is a social indicator. Egalitarianism is a economic indicator. Please understand this point. They are two very different things. A society can be patriarchal but egalitarian, because egalitarianism is the concept of economic status. And on the other hand, patriarchy is a social indicator. So they are two different things. So when we talk about society, it is patriarchal systems which is men are considered more important than women, but here men are equal to in certain cases with women, which is more than equal to women, in the sense women have access to education, because in the Rig Veda there are certain hymns which are shloks which have been written by women saints, and women saints are seen debating in front of everyone. So you have Gargi, Apala, Lopamudra as three very very important saints who were actually debating in front of everybody, and there are shloks which have been written by these saints in the Rig Veda. So women are not fully subjugated in the society, and more than that, marriage as an institution is referred to, and women move into husband's family, and this is basically an indicator of patriarchy. The words exogamy, endogamy, Abhishek, I know you know, but you don't use it in the context of Vedic age. Exogamy, endogamy, can't use it. So try to understand this. Male dominance is meant women have equal resources, so despite patriarchy being social indicator governed. No, understand this point. Egalitarianism is the status of all of these people in a way of economy. So it's a patriarchal system. And it is patriarchal because when marriage is referred to in Rig Veda, it talks about women going into the man's family, and therefore it is showing that still it is patrilineal and patriarchal. But there are degrees of patriarchy. Right now, patriarchy is not at what it's going to be just in the next 50 in the next period. This is the early Vedic period. It's not that women are better than or considered equal to men in all cases. But ritualistically and in certain cases, education, they have equal access at least. So the mindset is patriarchal, but women's subjugation is not fully there. Subjugation means to be subordinated to someone. It's not subordinated to someone. Women are not subordinated to men. Women don't have maybe equal status in certain things, but they are not fully dominated by men. So it is a patriarchal system. It's not that it's a man-dominated point. Sachin, you would be reading the later Vedic period. So there's no mistake in the PPT. Women fully subjugated would be written for later Vedic period. So I know my PPTs at least. So stop doing that and concentrate in class. So the first point you need to understand is there is patriarchal systems, and it cannot be so hard to understand that there can be patriarchy, but still women have a little bit of rights and power which they may not hold later. And one more indication of how patriarchy is still not at full-blown power is that within marriages, they are referring to polygamy and polyandry. Polygamy and polyandry are very interesting words. In a way, polygamy is a person having, be it male or female, having multiple partners. Polyandry and polygamy means that both men could have multiple wives, but women could also have multiple husbands. So the point is that maybe on the ground it would not have been possible, but the Rig Veda talks about it. Rig Veda talks about it. So understand this point. Women's subjugation is not full at this point of time. I will show you the PPT, Akula. Don't worry. Listen to me. Okay, it is in the PPT is written this. But listen to me at least. We'll come to that. I will read the PPT out in front of you. So first things first, it must most probably be in the later Vedic period. In the Vedic period, early Vedic period, there is a certain type of access to women to education, to cattle, which is economic resources, and they are not fully subjugated. So अरे यार यहाँ बोलो ना, tell me that I've written it down. Women are not fully subjugated. Tell me, you are saying that it is written in the PPT. Say that I have not written not fully. So not fully. Okay? Now listen to me. Society patriarchal. So most of your writing, it is written in the PPT. Say that, sir, you have wrote. I know how to write English. Right? Say, sir, you've wrote down the wrong thing. You're saying it is written in the PPT. That means that PPT text says that. Society, patriarchal system. Men are still better, but not fully better or subjugating women. Polyandry and polygamy are words used for marriage systems in which multiple partners can be there for both men and women. Can I talk about religion, and then you will understand why this system is like this? And I'll summarize everything for you. It's not hard to understand. Try to understand. We are understanding the basic indicators here. Okay. And I hope that you understand how can an egalitarian system, not fully egalitarian, but egalitarian system, how it can have a system in which the society is patriarchal. I hope you're understanding that these are two different words. Egalitarianism, which is limited egalitarianism or egalitarianism, and patriarchal systems. Patriarchal systems is mindset, access. On the other hand, egalitarianism is how we see the society itself with vis-a-vis indications to one another. Now, when you talk about religion, the religion at this point of time is naturalistic religion based on gods who personify nature. So, for example, Indra, Varun, Aditi, Agni, so Vayu, these are the gods which are referred to, which is Indra would be the god of thunder, Varun, Agni, Vayu, air, fire, water, Indra. Aditi is considered the ultimate power, a woman goddess who embodies the nature itself. So there is still no proper ritualistic centric religion. It is about revering nature. And therefore, Som also, if you want to, Som, we don't have to learn that. It used to be something important, not important now. The point is religion is indicative of a certain type of openness. Wherein there is no rigid, bound, proper ritualistic processes. So very simply, Som is sun. So very simply, the point is that the early Vedic period is showing us that the society is a little bit egalitarian. Women still have access to things. And this is going to drastically change very quickly. So just to read it out from the PPT itself, I want to then summarize this section, because understanding later Vedic, and you will understand the that is Chandrama, not Som is sun. Chandrama is moon. Okay. When we talk about early Vedic period, the polity is chieftain structure. Administration is tribal in nature. Now I'm consolidating with you, and then we will write everything down in one slide and then talk about the later Vedic period. It's a chieftain structure, and there's no full-fledged monarchical state. Every tribe had one elder who was also called Pramukha or Jeshtha, but the title which he used to take was Rajan. And Rajan was called a person called Janasya Gopa. Janasya Gopa means the person who protects the people and the cattle. So Gopa, these words refer to cattle. And his task was to protect the people and increase the cattle of the community. He could wage war, and that war was to get the cattle of the other tribe. And there's no taxation except for Bali, a word which is used for a voluntary offering to the Rajan out of respect. So Jan means people, Gopa means cattle. Now, the Rajan was surrounded by other important personalities also, because they are waging war. There was a need for a Senapati, but they also have other officers which used to help him in administering that society. So, for example, he had a person called the Vrajapati. Please have to remember this, who basically looks for pastures. He takes, because you have so much cattle, you have to make sure that there is pasture available for everyone. You have to remember the words like Janasya Gopa. Whatever I'm marking, you have to remember, because it's a textual source-based reconstruction of history. Terms become important. Then You could have what we call as a person who used to take care of the semi-permanent settlement via having fortifications which were made out of mud, therefore marking the that territory for a certain time and then moving forward. So it was not proper fortification because there are nomadic pastoralists. Because pastoralism, after a point, that grazing land will go away. So they're still moving around, but not in months, but over years. You needed people to take law and order in their basic understanding. So you even have an Ugra, who's like the police. And you also spy on the other tribes to know how many cattle they have. And that would be a spasa. So these are terminologies which we see in the Rig Veda referring to certain officers which the Rajan used to appoint to help him administer the people. But what is more interesting is that no, there's no position of financial in charge because there's no money. There's no money. If there was money, then you need a finance minister. Now, the more interesting aspect here, they did not start to live in one place for long. Mud fort means they are not having proper fortifications, so it's not a permanent settlement. So they could be here, then they have to move here because all the grazing land around it would be gone. So they are not fully sedentary in that way because agriculture isn't there. Now, the other aspect here it would be that how does the Rajan not have, he's not creating a structure in which he's controlling everybody directly. He's rather creating a very interesting ladder of or hierarchy of what we call as officers and levels through which he can manage the people better. So the very interesting aspect here would be, and I'll write it down, that when we talk about administratively, every household is basically considered a kul. And a kulapati used to take care of one household or 2-3 households together. Then multiple kuls used to make a gram, which is a semi-permanent village. And that was given to a gramini. Then multiple of these semi-permanent villages, and this could be a very big society also, was under a vis. And there was a visapati who used to take care of the gramas. And the gramas was then, or jan, under the Rajan. So kul means one family. So very simply, a Rajan could control multiple vispatis, and multiple vispatis could control graminis, and graminis then could control multiple kulapatis. So you are seeing that this is basically decentralization of power. That you don't need the Rajan to go and speak to every person who is there. He will just talk to the Vishapati. Is everything fine in your Vish? He'll say yes. The Vishpati is then going to talk to the Gramini of his area. He will say yes, everything is perfect. And then they will go to the basic unit, which is Griha. Griha means household. So think of it like this. Think of it like that. The Rajan would be the governor. Vishpati would be the what we call as you can say district, which is IAS officer. Gramini would be very simply the sarpanch, and the Kulapati would be the head of the household. So it's very simply a very sophisticated system, even in a tribal system or tribal setup itself. And it's not that they did not have multiple institutions which were deliberative bodies. You have the Sabha, which is a small elite gathering of tribal elders. You have the Samiti, which is a larger assembly of all members presided over by the Rajan. And then you have Vidhata, which is basically when the Samiti used to meet for socio-religious, ceremonial and ritualistic purposes, it is called Vidhata. Now, economically, Animals such as horses, goats, sheep, all are mentioned in the book Rig Veda. But wherever you find the infix, which is prefix or suffix go, it means that it is referring to cattle and cattle raids. There's very rudimentary agriculture, because words related to agriculture still are referred to in the Rig Veda, such as Vap, Kish, Phala, Langala. But the name, the nature of agriculture is very limited. It's not extensive agriculture. We have reference to multiple occupations also: warrior, priest, cattle rearers, farmers, hunters, barbers. There's multiple ways in which they are helping the society. Though they have multiple occupations, they still, it's not that somebody would be very very rich or very very poor. That is the egalitarian aspect, because money does not exist in the economy, and it's an egalitarianistic society in that regard. You can also have different crafts which are referred to. For example, chariot making, you have cart making, carpentry, weaving, everything. We don't have to learn that. And most importantly, there is no currency and no coinage. There is no concept of land. Then how will there be private property? There's no private property here. So there is no coinage, though there are words such as the Nishka, which are referred to in the Rig Veda. They are indicative of what we call as gold globules or gold as lumps, not as coins. And the Rig Veda, though the society is very straightforward, it still refers to, and is a very important point, the Dasa Dasi tradition, which is a form of slavery. This form of slavery. What do you mean by Dasa Dasi? Dasa Dasi means that you wanted cattle, for example. You wanted cattle, but there's no money concept. But I want cattle. I have nothing to exchange with you also. In a barter system, I have nothing to exchange with you also. So I say that I will work for you for 1 year and you give me one cow. So then how, for that 1 year, you are working for that person? So the person you are working for, you will be considered a slave, das, servant. And a woman, when she works, it's a dasi. So it's not the type of slavery which you are thinking, that black type slavery, not black slavery. In India, since the Rig Vedic period itself, we have Dasa Dasi tradition, which is in a way debt bondage. In a way, debt bondage, or it is called service-based bondage. You can't give them someone, so rather you give your service. And when they used to fight with each other, they were also taking the other tribes as dasas. First making them work and then giving them the status. Were indigenous people dasa dasi? First, don't use the word indigenous. This is not colonial. This is not colonialism. No, dasa dasi has nothing to do with indigenous, non-indigenous. Everybody by this point of time is an Aryan, and therefore there's no concept like that. Now, socially, early Vedic has several words for the household. Patriarchal, patrilineal, marriage is referred to, but monogamy, polyandry, and polygamy all are referred to. Relative freedom to women, Gargi, Visheshwara, Apala, Swarnavara, and Lopamudra are the very important, very important women saints. And it's an egalitarian society vis-a-vis economic status. So now, what do you need to remember generally? Because we have to contrast it with the later Vedic period, and that is the most important thing which we have to do. What are the basic characteristics? Can I write them down? Because this is what really matters. The terms which I have marked for you, you have to remember. Basic characteristics. We can discuss this. Okay. Now, basic characteristics. First is pastoralist economy. economy. Second, knowledge of iron but no use. Third, no currency and no coinage. Fourth, you can add here limited agriculture. Thereafter, chieftain, tribal polity, sabha, samiti, vidhata, early democratic institutions. 6, egalitarian society with diverse occupations. Patriarchy with women less than equal to men. 8, women have access to education and economic resources. 9, cattle as wealth and wars for that. 10, dasa dasi tradition. 11, naturalistic religion with nature gods. And last but not the least is Bali as voluntary contribution, no, not tax, so no taxation. Are we clear with regards to these 12 points? Because I will then contrast it with later Vedic also, and you will see that it is extremely important to understand it in that context. What is naturalistic polytheism? This is what is called naturalistic polytheism. Multiple gods linked to nature. So naturalistic polytheism. Fourth point, chieftain, you can refer to Rajan. Sure, I can write Rajan here. Okay. Patriarchy with relative freedom to women means women of rich household were allowed to. No. Again, Aniket, I'm telling you it's an egalitarian society, then rich and small, how it is coming. Patriarchy with relative freedom means that women are still not the ones who take the kula forward, the household forward, but they still have access to education and cattle. So they know iron, but they're not using iron. We see that they're talking about it, and very simply, we don't find a lot of proper references to iron and any words which refer to iron implements, but they know how to smelt iron, that we know. Patrilineal system means that the father's side goes forward. The fact that we all take our father's surname is called patrilineality. This is not slash and burn agriculture. Don't bring your geography into this. Sixth point is egalitarian society with diverse occupation, means that there is a lot of different occupations, but there is no inequality in the society, drastic inequality in the society. That is the point you need to understand. And taxation, the king does not collect tax. If you want to voluntarily contribute something, sure. Okay. Learn names of agricultural terms, Shushmit, only after you've learned these points. You should be cognizant of it. It is easy because they are referring to Go and all, but not right now. Barter, I will not say, because in pastoralism, barter as it is would not work. But we can say it's a barter system based concept. It's not difficult, you are making it difficult. It's very straightforward. It's a pastoralist society with the Rajan, women, and see, this is the problem, that we are so into patriarchy that you're not able to imagine a society in which there can be patriarchy, but still women have access to certain things. When I discuss later Vedic with you, you will understand why are these points important. So, very simply, from where this linguistic group migrated. Again, Agula, you are either 24 hours late, or this is Gajini effect. This is Central Asia. We've discussed this yesterday itself. So, can I move to later Vedic period? Are these 12 points clear? If in the examination these 10-12 points are written, you will be able to associate them with early Vedic, right? Okay. What about ownership of property, ownership of cattle, individual considered? Again, ownership of property can't be there because land is useless to them. Cattle is not owned by the community but by the kul. So, in a way, they all own the cattle together because the cattle gives them what they want as a community itself. So there has social income, wealth inequality. Again, using big fundas and not knowing what you're saying. When I'm saying it is egalitarianism, then how can be there social inequality? Inequality is socially is not there. I'm saying economic inequality is also not there. That is what I'm trying to argue. You are confusing apple with orange. That is the problem. Your notion of egalitarianism is problematic. Because egalitarian is an economic term. And social discrimination is not based on egalitarianism. Egalitarianism or social inequality is a different concept itself. Were dasas and dasis living in inhuman condition? No, because it's not the way you think of slavery. I'm now moving to later Vedic because what you're doing is you're just mixing the things up and you're not listening to me. Okay. Now, Rigvedic and later Vedic societies were developed by Aryan migration. Once we enter 1500, there is no distinction between an indigenous person and an Aryan. Please understand this also. Don't fall into that Instagram type of history which random people nowadays have started to talk about. So don't do that. There are certain people who claim to give you history, but they're basically giving you propaganda. So remember that after 1500, the Aryans are the Indian civilization. So please understand this point. 12 points I've made. It is not difficult to understand. You are just trying to complicate it yourself. Simple, straightforward point is patriarchy exists in the society. Marriage as an institution exists in the society. Socially, there is a little bit of differentiation between men and women, but women still have a lot of access to education and economic resources, which is owning with the community, in a way, cattle. There is no concept of ownership here because for ownership, there needs to be a transaction. On the other hand, when we talk about egalitarianism, I'm talking about different stratas of society. In a simple society, it's not a fully simple society, but it's a semi-simple society. It's not a complex society as we see later. So the poison called agriculture has not come into this system. That is why it is exhibiting democracy also. Now, if we are all on the same page, can I move forward? Because I don't want to know what you know. Okay. Now, again, but sir, written in book about inequality because conflict of cattle, distribution of war booty. War booty is cattle only. And conflict for cattle is not because of inequality. It is a political act which the Raja needs to do. So when did political actions have economic basis? Again, listen to what you're writing. Inequality has nothing to do with cattle raiding. That's a political activity of the society. Okay. Again, Monalisa, don't use the word Manu Smriti, Smriti, Puranas. Nothing like that text has been written at this point of time. Only the Vedas exist. You don't know what you're saying, but Smritis and Smriti tradition is going to come later. Okay. War again, पता नहीं कहाँ से, where do you read this polity? I don't get. War on other tribes does not indicate economic inequality. Either you're asking me or telling me. Please, I don't know what books you're getting or what books you're reading. Please stay away from these books. Literally, I have no idea what you're doing. If you're telling me, Sachin, very good. If you're not telling me, good. The point is, war has nothing to do with inequality. War is a political activity. So, pata nahi, I don't know what you're reading. So, whatever you're reading, close it and keep it aside because you need to listen to me. We go into the later Vedic period. 1600 BC. So early Vedic, remember, is 1500 to 1000, and later Vedic is 1000 to 600. There is Dasa Dasi system. How will it become egalitarian? Dasa Dasi is not that you're literally ragadifying that Dasa Dasi, that you are making that person a proper Das Dasi. Don't think of it like today that you are going to become a Das Dasi in the way Das Dasi you are thinking. The system is called Dasa Dasi tradition, but it's basically paying off your, or in a way, be going into a bondage to pay off or get cattle. So it's not that you are going to go into black slavery, that you will be whipped together every day, dragged through the it's not that. Modern notions are coming. Dasa Dasi can be a servant. So is servant based on again, and the problem in that, Shweta, the problem in that question itself is you're talking about Dasa Dasi, which is a social tradition, and you're talking about egalitarianism, which is an economic tradition or economic concept. So you are mixing two things up. I cannot emphasize enough how you are basically complicating it for yourself. There can be a society where there is inequality, but there can be also a society where there is inequality, but equal, what we call as economic status. There can be. And I'll give you a very simple example of it. I'll give you a very simple example. This is the last time I'm actually distracting others, because who want to study are getting distracted. And I can feel that. Your family, in your family, you all are equal. Socially, all of you are equal. No. So there's social inequality in your family. But as one unit, as a family, you are egalitarian, right? Because all of you have the same exact amount of money as a unit. So how is that? How is that you all are socially unequal? What is called social inequality in the system, but egalitarian. This is the example of an egalitarian system with social inequality. Because you act as a unit, you are egalitarian. If your father has 10 lakh rupees, you also have 10 lakh rupees. That is the it. That as one, it is it. And thereafter, the internal politics is different. That on social hierarchy, you are different. Okay. So Aurab, it will say 500 somewhere, it will say 600 somewhere. I am taking the more broader approach than not going to 500, taking till 600. Okay. Now, got it, sir, you are writing, but it should not take so much time to get it. Okay. Economically, they are equal in saying yes. Now, later Vedic period, the economy changes. And now you have agriculture as the main occupation. And see, agriculture complicates everything. Agriculture complicates everything. You already know the thumb rule, which is that agriculture will lead to surplus, will lead to complex society, will lead to early state formation. But here agriculture is such a big poison that every social evil in India today, as we speak in 2023, has its genesis in the later Vedic period. How? Now the unit of wealth will become land, and with land will come the notion of private property. See, no currency is still there. All is barter system. Iron use will increase and become common. So basically, Iron Age in North India starts with the Vedic period. But with agriculture, inequality and holding land are important activities of the household. So inequality in society based on economic wealth. But the real change doesn't come here. The real change comes in polity. For the first time in Indian history, till we don't know what the IVC was talking about, for the first time in Indian history, monarchical systems develop, wherein the Rajan is now a hereditary monarch or king, and more than that, he is the protector of territory, not people. So basically, territorial kingship emerges because of agriculture, because the more land you control, the more wealth you have, and taxation will emerge. Name of the tax was bhaga. Bhag means to give something, give me a part. So this could be 1/6 to 1/10 of produce. And now Bali will become a mandatory offering to the king. So Bali used to be voluntary. Now two terms are there, Bhaga and Bali, which have emerged in that sense. So you have taxation also, and you have now Bali becoming compulsory and Bhaga being the land revenue or land tax in that regard. This is basically land tax. Rajan is hereditary, means that dynasties will emerge wherein one family controls the polity, and more than that, Rajan will start to nominate the Sabha. So democracy diluted. Samiti and Vidhata will persist for some time but fade away. Basically, they will cease to exist after a certain point of time. So you can see how democracy is getting diluted. So democratic institutions are destroyed. No women here. No women here. Women have no access in that sense. Now, anybody's any issue until this point? Nothing? No, out of the box, I have not discussed anything. Now comes religion and society. And herein lies the biggest change in Indian culture and society. That basically, Vedic Brahmanism will emerge as the first institutionalized religion in the Indian subcontinent. And Vedic Brahmanism is early Hinduism in a way, in which it is based on the reading of the Vedas. And the most important feature of Vedic Brahmanism is rituals and sacrifices. Any issue you have, you do a ritual and you do a sacrifice. That is the most important feature of Vedic Brahmanism. The Vedas will tell you which sacrifice, which ritual. And these are expensive and not available to everyone. And therein lies the next most important change. Vedic Brahmanism produces fourfold Varna system. Fourfold Varna system. Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. The knowledge system, the knowledge will be held by Brahmins, knowledge, rituals, etc. Kshatriyas are the warrior group. They are the merchant and farmers and what we call as commercial class. And in Vedic terms, these are the maintainers of society. But why is this structure problematic? Because it is a rigid system. No social mobility. And it's a discriminatory system. Shudras by birth will be warrior and ruling class. By birth will be socially excluded and socially discriminated. Now, for the people who are very good specialists of social issues in India, sociologists themselves, don't use the word caste by mistake in the chat box. There's nothing called caste. I will tell you caste what it is. So you don't give me big fundas right now. I will tell you what is caste and all when I will reach there. So you know it. I will tell you the evolution of it. So caste, this, that, jati, don't use these words. So I know there's a budding person in you trying to say caste. There's no caste. There's only fourfold Varna system, very rigid system which emerges. So you can see that there is now a proper discriminatory system which has come up because of agriculture. Agriculture gives Rajan that much power. And now there will be one more thing, which is kingship will become ritualized or ritualistic kingship, wherein the Brahmin and the Kshatriya will go into a certain symbiotic relationship, wherein the Brahmins get access to power and wealth, and on the other hand, the Brahmins justify the rule. That the Brahman will say that I spoke to God yesterday, got a call from him, and he said, yes, this Kshatriya is your ruler. So he has the attestation of God, the concept of divine kingship. That no one else but God said in the ears of the Brahmin that this ruler is theek hai, mast hai. You can use this. I have sanctioned his power. And in order to show it to the people, he will start to do 3 rituals. One is called Ashwamedha Yagya. Then you have Rajasuya. And you have, yes, Vajpaya. Very good. Vajpaya. Ashwamedha Yagya is called horse sacrifice. In this, what you do is that you sacrifice a horse and then send one horse with one person into the wild till the point till which the horse can run without any obstruction is the area of that king. Makes no sense, but sure. Vajpaya is called the chariot race. Chariot race is that there will be a race in which you will have that Rath race. For the Americans in the class, a Rath race. So the chariot race will happen and whoever wins it will get the lunch with the king. So it's a very exclusive right that you eat with the king, and it's a ritualist, very big sport is done. And Rajasuya is royal coronation ceremony. What is called the Abhisheka ceremony. That you very simply, the king, his son, when he will capture power, when he will come to power, he will be given this ritual kingship in a very big yagya in that regard. So you can see that things are becoming very quickly complicated. And the point is that social exclusionary bodies and social exclusionary institutions are coming through. But the worst of the worst will happen for the women. And what happened to the women in the later Vedic period in 1000 BCE, they have still not been able to recover out of that position. Till today, 2023, Still, women struggle with the same issues. Women are fully subjugated to men. Women become subjugated to men. Ritualistic means ritual based to men, and no access to education or economic resource. This is very important. It's very important to understand, which is that women's ownership of land was never allowed. And I'll tell you why, but first listen to me. And women, in that sense, will be defined by her role vis-a-vis 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 the husband, and the women are now fully socially excluded. Socially excluded. Now I'll tell you why. And this is the genesis of women's struggle against Indian society. And remember, in agrarian societies, women always are subjugated. Always are subjugated. Women will be defined by the role, basically means she will be defined as a wife, she will be defined as a sister, as a mother, but never as herself. And agrarian systems, this is why I tell you that agriculture is slow poison, the poison which got in a way into the Indian society at this point of time, literally destroyed everything. Now, do you want to know why do agrarian societies always subjugate women, and how women in India, in a way, what is the genesis of that issue which we have today? And the reason is a very simple, straightforward point, which is fragmentation of land. See, previously, women were given access to cattle because cattle was, in a way, community owned. In a way. However, now land is a private property. If I have 2 daughters and 2 sons, and I have land which is basically divided into 4 parts. When the woman will marry, will she remain in the same household? No. And therefore, there's a chance that these 2 parts of land would go to the next family. So this would lead to fragmentation. So now what they do is that they generally take out the women out of the picture itself. So because if women will not own land, women will not fragment land. And basically, marriage as an institution and patrilineality literally destroyed the access of women on any form of economic power. And with no economic power, they will obviously be defined by men. So that is why in tribal societies, if you're a sociology or anthropology optional person, you would know, in tribal societies, there is still an institution of marriage. But women have sometimes more power or equal power to men, because there's no notion of division of land or private property. In agricultural societies, on the other hand, there's a problem, which is that they tend to take away access of land from women, because women fragment land under the notions of marriage under that system. See, all of this is not part of your syllabus. The reason why women don't get land is not part of your syllabus. I'm telling you as your form of general knowledge as a student of history. At certain points of time in this discussion, I will be talking about things which really don't matter for your syllabus. But as a human, as a woman, as a man in India, as an Indian citizen, as what you are today, you need to know how things are and why they are like that. So it's not that for a lot of people, until today, you will see it in the newspaper. It's very easy to blame things on the British. That this is there because the British did it. This is there because the Mughals did it. This is there because this did it. But the answer is that it's not that easy. All social institutions which actually are problematic today have genesis not in the Mughal or the colonial period. They have their origin in the ancient period, in the later Vedic text itself and the later Vedic period itself. You may like it or you don't like it, that doesn't really matter to me. But the genesis of all social exclusionary bodies, institutions, and the subjugation of women, unfortunately, was grounded in the later Vedic period, with agriculture becoming the mainstay. And the fourfold Varna system, which will later evolve into a much more complex concept of caste, which I will discuss with you in the post-Mauryan period, there is a certain correlation between agriculture, land, and the concept of kingship. Now do you get it why I told you that agriculture will always complicate things? Because agriculture makes land important and we are obsessed with land. Son, father, son, any combination of relationship you can take. And in India, you would be ready to kill that person for land. Every day that happens in India, it's not something new. And that is the genesis of the problem. So the later Vedic period is a stark contrast to the early Vedic period, because in one go, the whole system changes because agriculture becomes the mainstay. So can I now give you a table in which I can write early Vedic and later Vedic together? We take a break and then come back and take the story forward to Mahajanpada and Janpadas. Yes? No access to education, economic resources. Women ownership of land was never allowed. Okay. Now, note there's no trade. There's no trade. Trade still does not emerge. No trade. We'll come to that. Emergence of monarchical systems. Later Vedic texts reflect a transition from tribal polity to territorial state. Rajan is now leader in battle, protector of the settlements and of the Brahmins specifically. He's the custodian of social order, and hereditary kingship has now emerged. There's ritualized kingship under which Ashwamedh, Vajpaya and Rajsuya sacrifices are happening. And the Vidhata completely disappears. Sabha Samiti continue to hold ground, but over a period of time, Sabha will be chosen by the king and Samiti will disappear. Now, because tax is important, there will be Bhaga, 1/10 to 1/6 of the total produce, and a person called Sanagrihiti is going to go and collect that tax for the king. So that's a specific officer for tax collection. Now, the terms also start to reflect a certain administrative order, which is that you have a person called the Bhagadhuga, who basically, Rajasuya is royal coronation, Vajpaya is chariot racing, Ashwamedh is horse sacrifice. So Bhagadhuga is the one who collects the taxes. Sanagriti is going to be under the Bhagadhuga. You now also start to see certain very important positions emerging, wherein justice was becoming important in an unequal society. So you have this Thapati, and the forts and the city are now permanent. So Purapati, Gramini is the same. Suta is the one who is basically the king's historian. He will write the history. And the most important, Ashwapa, which is a accountant, because money needs to be kept under control. Now, the ones which I'm marking are the ones which you learn first. Once you've learned these 5, then only you move to the next set. There are certain areas in ancient where there are multiple terminologies. Now, obviously, you can't learn it in one day. My only suggestion you to is going to be that together, maximum the total number of terms would be 30-40 maximum. Learn one each day and try to look for a logic in the word, and you will automatically understand it. For example, see, Bhagaduga is very easy because Bhaga is written in it also. But if you can't remember it, you can also make acronyms, which is Aksh, account. Don't make AA because it will make no sense. So the ones which I'm marking, you need to make sure that you remember. This is where you come in. My role is going to be minimal when it comes to learning. Yes, 30-40 terms entire ancient history. Maximum. Most of them is in the Mauryan period. Maurya, when I will discuss, the maximum amount of terms are in Maurya. Maximum. So, can you do your part and learn these terms systematically over the next 200 days? You can do that, right? Not asking you to do it today, asking you to do it over 200 days. If you can do that, then our work is more or less done in that sense. Thereafter, when we talk about economy, early Hinduism is same, or evolution of, I'm saying Vedic Brahmanism is early Hinduism. That will become Hinduism. You have agriculture, use of iron, cereals such as barley, wheat, rice, all are referred to. And now there's a lot of words for sowing, plowing, reaping, threshing. But what is more important to you and me is land was a very important resource, and it will now be the most important unit of wealth, and household will be basic unit of labor. Everybody in the family works on that land. Concentration of wealth in the hand of the rulers and the kings. And now there will also be craft specialization, which is already there, but there is persistence of that. We will have wagons drawn by oxen for transportation of things. Ruts and chariots were also known. That is why the Vajpayee Yagya itself. Exchange is still barter. There is no currency. And now different types of land are also referred to. Ironically, some of these terms are still used. Kshetra is the most fertile land. But the word such as khila, which is for wasteland, is still today used. Apahata and khila are two terms which are still used. In certain parts of India, bad land is called khila. That this is khila land, bad land. So the land terminologies are also now emerging and becoming important. Society-wise, we see the crystallization of Varna system, social discrimination and subordination of women. Marriage will become important, but the relationship of husband and wife will become a subordinate hierarchical relationship. Same will be seen within father and son. It's a hierarchy-based relationship. And women came to be increasingly identified in their relationship with men. And Stri, Yosha, Jaya are words which are linked to motherhood and wifehood. The Grihapati has now control over the economy and the reproductive capacity of the woman also. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give you a box. I'll write both things together and we can then move on. Yes? Okay. Everybody is following the discussion and generally there's no issue. It seems as a drastic change, but that is what it is. It is the way it is. Indian society changed in 1 second into something which we had never seen. And all of that is because of one basic change, which is in economy. So, Ocean, first learn the terms I've marked, and then you learn the ones which are not marked. But the ones which I've marked are very, very important. Okay. Early Vedic period, later Vedic period. How they got to know about agriculture? They already knew limited agriculture. Agriculture became the mainstay. pastoralism, agriculture, wealth equals to cattle, wealth equals to land, no taxation, no trade, no trade. This is one point you have to remember, similarity between these two. But then the barrage of things change. Tribal polity, Rajan, Sabha, Samiti, Vidhata. You have taxation, Bhaga and Bali. You have territorial, monarchical state, Rajan, no Samiti and Vidhata, Sabha nominated. Rajan is non-hereditary. Rajan is hereditary. Thereafter, no ritualized kingship. Ashwamedh, Rajasuya and Vajpaya sacrifice. Naturalistic religion, social distinction based on occupation, egalitarianism, women access to education and economic resources. On the other hand, here you have Vedic Brahmanism, fourfold Varna system, social discrimination of Shudras, subordination of women, women become and women's access to education and land not there. So in a way, women and Shudras socially excluded and discriminated. No currency. Are we clear with regards to how between 1500 to 1000 and then from 1000 to 600 BCE things totally changed? Now, are you in a position for the examination to differentiate, identify statements which are associated with each one of them? Yes? Yes, Deepika, you can say that. Iron use, okay. Iron known iron used. Last line is education and economic resources access to women and men. This last line of early Vedic. So can we take a break here? Right side in blue, women access to education and land not there, and women and Shudra social exclusion discriminated. Kishan, first thing Monday, because we have to cover these two modules to actually cover certain previous year questions. Previous year questions, the problem is that cross-cutting three modules. So I can't show it to you without doing Buddhism, Jainism, which I have to start today. In later Vedic age, kingship became hereditary. Yes, hereditary kingship. In early Vedic, pastoralism with limited agriculture. Yes. In early Vedic, Samiti is not there. Sabha Samiti Vidhata is given. Here, no Samiti Vidhata, Sabha is nominated. Language is Sanskrit Brahmi script. Naturalistic religion, social distinction based on occupation, egalitarianism. Social distinction based on occupation means there are different occupations which people do. Other than that, there's no social distinction. Mahima, nature worship is there in early Vedic. Vedic gods are also linked to, but Indra becomes very important in Vedas. So what happens is that Soma, Aditi, and these Varun and Vayu will go away, and Indra will become very important. They obviously know the use of copper. If they use if they use iron, they use copper already. Common language for this whole period is Sanskrit with Brahmi script. There is no subjective question which can come from this area. But when we discuss that question which came in the UPSC, because that's not a history, that's a social issue plus history question. But if you tell me one thing, in this year GS paper 1, there was a question called how discuss the Vedic age and its social features and how these are related to India. Can you now answer that? I'll give you the exact question when we come back. I'll read it out to you. With the knowledge I'm giving you for prelims, you can write that mains question also. When I come back from the break, I will give you the exact wording of that question, and you tell me with what I've discussed with you, will you be able to answer it or not? Can I take a break here? Are we all clear? Gargi and Maitri, these are prominent women saints of the early Vedic period. These are smaller details which you can remember separately. Yes? Okay. So we come back at 8:05. I'm giving you 15 minutes. We've gone for long, so I'm giving you more 5 minutes. But when we come back, GS paper 1 question, and then we transition to Mahajanpadas and Buddhism, Jainism. So I leave you on this. 8:05 we come back. See you. Welcome back. Nilu, with no currency, how they pay tax? By giving a share of their produce. You have 100 kgs, you give 20-30 kgs to the king. Okay. First, Yajur, Sam, Atharved were written, later transformed. No, Deepika. First, this society emerged and they wrote the Vedas. So we know that they are indicative of their own society. So the texts are written later, not first. 1/6 to 1/10. Okay. Now, just 1 second. I'll check that question for you. Yes. Paper 1. This year we have 2023. GS paper 1, 2023. The question which we are talking about, yes, question number 11 of GS paper 1 was, what are the main features of Vedic society and religion? Do you think some of these features still prevail in Indian society? Are you capable of writing this question? The subject member expert has also sent it. Are you capable of the question which has been written or has been pushed by the SME? Thank you, SME. Yes. Okay, perfect. So basically, that question is asking about this discussion itself. So I know that ancient history does not come in mains, but this question is not a mains question from ancient India. It's a social issues question. The second part of the question is more important. Do you think some of these features are prevailing? This question is a history plus social issues question. So just to give you a googly in the examination, for the people who don't study prelims, who listen to people who say that don't study what we call as ancient India for prelims, or rather they say that leave ancient India, this is the question for that, which is that very simply, if you go through this process, you will be always able to write. So with this knowledge, you have the capability of writing this question also. Yes, you, when it says only Vedic society, it means both early and later both. But in this question, you have to talk about the later Vedic because you have to talk about the prevailing systems also. Right? How to write about significance in these days of early Vedic age? Are all women equal in India? Are all women's issue gone? Do Varna and caste issues persist in India? Obviously persist in India. That is the reminiscence, that is what is prevailing. Try to understand this point, that whatever the Vedic age in this you see, all of the later fourfold Varna system, social discrimination, discrimination of women, hierarchical systems, caste-based discrimination, social exclusion, all of these things still exist in India. So they have basically checked if you understand ancient and you understand social issues together. That's it. So you don't have to do a thesis on the Vedic age, but you have to just have an understanding of the Vedic age in that regard. So can I now move to the second part of the discussion, which is Mahajanpadas and Buddhism, Jainism, and the Mahajanpada period? Yes? Okay. Sugandhi, social issues said, Sir told Varna system having flexibility initially, later became rigid. Now there's a presumption there which is problematic. I understand why he's saying it or she's saying it, but what they are doing is that they're seeing the early Vedic occupational differentiation as Varna and then saying that it became rigid in the later Vedic period. But it's technically not true. Technically not true. If you go by optional level, academic level understanding, Varna system emerged as a rigid system itself. It is based on a flexible occupational differentiation. But can you call it Varna as a separate issue altogether? Getting my point, Sugandhi? He said that Varna initially was non-discriminatory and was a mechanism of division of society. In a society, if Varna system in later Vedic is discriminatory, does it originate? Again, what you are trying, see, a lot of you are now trying to justify the Varna system. And there is no justification for it. See, occupational differentiation has always been there in society. Please understand this point. The people who try to, for example, see, there will, when we'll do modern India, people tend to justify sati also. But is sati justified? Any scripture, whatever it says, I don't care about it. Same way, the Varna system was there sati? No, there's no sati child marriage at this point of time, Vedic period, nothing like that. Sati is a very medievalist thing. Please understand this point. Occupational differentiation is occupational differentiation. But Varna system is a very crystallized, institutionalized form of division of society. And you can't say that there's a justification for that because it was already there. They just institutionalized it. This is the difference. Because when you say that it was flexible and became rigid, you are linking the existence or the genesis of Varna to occupational differentiation. That can't be. So in this answer, in this question, you just simply talk about how in the Vedic period, Vedic Brahmanism is going to emerge, social discrimination and social exclusion is going to emerge. It is part of the later Vedic society. And then say all of these issues exist in India also, and then write one section on how the prevailing system or the prevailing issues are still there. So it is not difficult. The point is this table itself answers everything. Now, I don't want to go into analyzing Varna with you because whatever you give me as an argument really doesn't justify this system, and saying it is flexible and rigid at the same point of time is also problematic. Okay. When it says Vedic age in the examination, it means Vedic age means 1500 to 600. But you have to be smart enough to know what part you have to write. If you write in this question only early Vedic period, will you be able to write a good answer? No, you have to categorically talk about later Vedic period so as to link these two parts up. Okay. Raja Ram Mohan said, Raja Ram Mohan did not say go back to the Vedas. That's a separate person. Restore the religion. He did not. He talked about the Upanishads. Upanishads are different. When we'll reach art and culture, I'll discuss that. That's a separate issue altogether. Okay. Accountant keeps track of land, how much tax people are paying or they owe. That is Dayanand Saraswati. Okay. Now, I am transitioning away. Vedic age is over. I've already, in a way, given you close to 20 minutes of time to think. And this is what you come up with. That's a separate issue altogether. Can I now move forward? Anshu, what is your doubt? Write your doubt. Don't tell me to solve your doubt. Then it goes up. I can't do that. I don't know what is your doubt. Write your doubt, then I can see it. Okay. In conclusion, we talk about how reservation. Kishan, the question, is it asking you to give a solution? This is called overreach. In the question which the SME has pushed, is it asking you for solutions? Then why are you trying to give a solution? You have to, in the conclusion, say that there's a genesis of this and these issues prevail in India and we need to take right steps. Don't give solutions when the question is not asking for solutions. Women allowed in Sabha in early and later Vedic period. Only in early Vedic period, Anshu. On the other hand, women have no access to education. How they participate in? They have access to Sabha Samiti Vidhata only in the early Vedic period, when they have access to education also. No access to women in the later Vedic period. Okay. In this type of question, analysis is important. Okay, now I'm moving away from Vedic age. That is done. The later Vedic period, way forward and solution are two different things. Way forward is how the government can go forward with that issue. Solution is problem solving for the government itself. There's very major difference between these two things. Fact and Rahul, not facts, only analysis. Okay. Now, later Vedic period, what we see, now please settle down, because Vedic question is over. Vedic period is over. Now I'm taking the story forward. Now later Vedic period has given rise to what we today call as monarchical territorial systems. And between this 1500 and 600 BCE, what happens is that there emerge 22 Janapadas. The word Janapada means political state. There emerge 22 Janapadas. And there's a major change in the location of these Janapadas. These 22 Janapadas fight with each other and they consolidate into 16 Mahajanapadas. These 16 Mahajanapadas are monarchical systems, but there's also one more type of polity. But I want you to look at the location of the 16 Mahajanapadas. Janapada is basically a state. It's a polity. Kingdoms. 22 kingdoms. 22 kingdoms. Pay attention. Kingdoms. All are based on later Vedic notions of polity. And these kingdoms emerge as bigger states in the form of 16 Mahajanpadas. Now, if you look at the location of the Mahajanpadas, can you see a difference? What I'm trying to argue is a separate issue altogether. If you see the location, what is the stark difference between the map which you've previously seen and the Mahajanpadas in that regard? What are you able to understand after looking at the location of the IVC and the location of these Mahajanpadas? The major thing which you can see here is that while the IVC, the Indus Valley Civilization, was concentrated here, now they moved into the what is called eastward expansion of political systems in India. They have moved into the heart of the northern sector. And the reason for this is iron. See, the Mahajanapadas, their location is in the north heart. Because of iron implements, the forests were cleared, and that led to what is called as eastward expansion. So iron for the later Vedic period was very important because that will allow for them to move into the alluvial plains. And the movement into the alluvial plains will be even more significant because that will create even more surplus. And with more and more surplus, there will be more state formation and complex societies. And therein lies the genesis of these Janapadas and the Mahajanapadas. There were 22 Janapadas, basically 22 political units which fought with each other to get consolidated into 16. What I'm trying to argue here is that later Vedic period is in a way genesis to monarchical systems in India and all political systems in India, because it created the context in which territorial states became important, but over and above that, iron implements also became important. So the 6th century BCE, which we are talking about, this century is very, very significant because it is one gradual progression, one step forward to the later Vedic period, wherein now for the second time in Indian civilization, there will be what is called as second urbanization. First urbanization is which period? First urbanization is which period? The Indus Valley civilization. Second urbanization is 6th century BC. 6th century BCE is linked to three things. 6th century BCE is linked to three things. One is rise of Mahajanapadas. Rise of Mahajanapadas. 16 of them. Within those Mahajanpadas, rise of Magad and it is the same period in which there is eastward expansion. This is the same period in which we have Buddhism and Jainism will rise, which is three new religions will emerge, Ajivikas, three new religions. And the most important, revival of internal and external trade. Revival of internal and external trade. This is why 6th century BC is called second urbanization. Because the Indian society will again see a new type of dynamism. So basically, we have to cover each of these parts separately. I will start with the discussion on the Mahajanpadas. Then we'll talk about revival of internal and external trade. Then we'll talk about Magad. And then we have to talk about Buddhism, Jainism. So now our discussion has moved away. Ajivikas are a sect which becomes a religion. We will discuss it when we talk about heterodox religions. There are three things which we have to cover in that sense. Now, these are the 16 Mahajanpadas. You will find a different name and a different list in different texts because three different texts tell us the names of the 16 Mahajanpadas. In some places, there are discrepancies, but this is the standard one which you will find in every book that way. Now, out of the 16 Mahajanpadas, certain or most of them, except for 5, 11 were monarchies, means one man rule. However, there were also 6 or rather 5 such Mahajanpadas which were what are called Gana Sanghas, which means oligarchy, which is rule of few. Rule of few, which is there were 2 to 3 people together, rule of councils in that sense. Rule of councils. So very simply, the oligarchic systems are a little bit more what we call as democratic, but monarchies are not. Now, you have asked me, do we have to learn this? Now, a UPSC aspirant has to be smart. Should I learn the monarchies or should I learn the Ganasanghas. I should learn the republics. That is what I'm going to do. So what I will do is that I will make a acronym out of this. So Kupa, Kamva, or you can make it Kupan. Kupan, Kamvama, which is Kuru, Panchal, Kamboj, Vajji, and Mala. Now, why am I taking? Does UPSC ask is? They've never asked it except for one time. But that's a separate issue altogether. For that, you have to not learn it like this, but through maps. One time they've asked this question. But the point is, remembering the republics will help you in eliminating the question, because they can easily say that Mahajanpada was a republic, and then that brings it down to only 5, rather than remembering 11. But what I want from you is you need to concentrate like this. What I want is that you remember it like this. Kamboja and Gandhara are the northernmost. Ashmaka and Avanti are the southernmost. In a way, they become also the westernmost, along with Matsya, and Anga would be the easternmost. This is the Upinder Singh map. You have the same from the NCERT. Kamboja and Gandhara north, Avanti and Ashmaka south. In a way, Gandhara Kamboja is also the easternmost, but we'll take Matsya as the westernmost. And you have Anga. Anga is also called Vanga in certain texts, so it is Anga Vanga in the east. And what I want you to remember is that the area which is left, this area which you see here, is the core area of Mahajanpadas. And it is the same area in which Buddha and Mahavira, the two founders of the religion of Buddhism and Jainism, operated. Now, for your reference, I've done one more thing, which is I've given you these tables in which the Mahajanpada capital and its significance is written. Now, my basic suggestion is going to be very simple, straightforward. There's no point learning all 16. And this is for your reference. I want to do one thing, which is that can you, and this is slide number 47, can you just refer to 46 and 47 from time to time and look at their locations? That is it. I'm not asking you to learn it because the input is not worth the output. The input is actually not literally worth the output because there is too much detail. See, if your professor said learn all 16, then he thinks you're a computer. But I am not going to say that. For one question which had come 4-5 years back, which I will show you on Monday, there is no point learning all 16. And as it is, that question was not about the Mahajanpadas, but about Buddha and Mahavira. So my basic suggestion is I can easily say to you, learn all 16. That is the easiest thing I can say. I've just washed my hands off. I said that, okay, I pass the buck to you, learn 16. But I am telling you rather, learn their location through maps. Don't die over it. That is a very important point I'm trying to say to you. Don't die over it. That I am not able to learn the capital and the Mahajanpadas, my life is over. That is not what I want from you to in a realistic sense, you just need to look at their location. Learning their names and capitals will not really actually do anything, because the question is going to be more complex than that. So learn the 5 if you can, and know their location. Northern, eastern, southernmost, you can do that, right? You can do that at least. You can at least go through these 2 slides and look at what are the Gandhara, Kamboja, Matsya, Avanti, Ashmaka, and Anga are the ones which matter to us, because they are extremes. These are exceptions. If you can remember that, half of your work is done. For me, it is very easy to say remember 16, but I am telling you, don't die over it. Can I really talk about Magadh, which is more important? This area, Magadh, which is more important. That discussion is more important because that is what comes in the examination. Yes, we can talk about Magadh. Are you clear? I can say, remember all 16, learn these tables. But I am telling you, learn these tables when you have nothing to learn. So I want to now discuss Magadh. Can I do that? Okay. Right. Okay. Okay. So Aryans only fought and formed this. Again, Ved Shri, I am telling you one thing. Please, मैं हाथ जोड़ता हूँ that this Aryans did this, Aryans did that. Indian population. This Aryan distinction after Vedic period is not there. Please understand this point, because that is again a very politically charged statement which you said. 22 Mahajanpadas become 16. Out of the 16, remember 5. Out of that, remember north, south, east, west. Now, no, I know that. Why you are saying it, I know it very well. Because there's a woman on YouTube and Instagram who has no real qualification of teaching history, but she sits and says anything. I don't even remember her name, but I've seen her very annoying videos. So, I don't know what is her name. I don't have any ideas. She'll randomly come in your reel. Randomly come in your reel. I have no idea who she is. But I don't know what she knows about also, but she has a very politically charged statement. And she gives, yes, I'm not going to take her name to actually qualify and give her any form of recognition that way. But yes, Shreyank, Shrevasi, and Utkarsh, what the ones which you refer to, is the one I'm talking about. Yes. Hey, madam, hey. She makes very dramatic videos out of things which are not dramatic enough. Okay. So, this is the problem with history. People misuse history quite a lot. And that rhetoric which you're saying, na, Aryan, this distinction which you're talking about is actually quite perpetuated by her nowadays. Okay. No, I'm not going to tell you her name, because what you will do is that you will go and then watch the videos. And then you will ask me then ulte-pulte questions out of that. So I'm not going to do that. If you don't know her, very good. Best thing you've done in your life. Okay. Oh, everybody wants to be famous. You can say anything. I think recently something happened on Lalan Top also, right? Related to, I think, Gandhi and all. Something happened recently. So happens. Raghav, be precautionary. मेरी बात सुनो. As soon as you see a reel on history, आगे कर देना. ठीक है? I'm not going to obviously tell you. And see, that is about validating her name. She wants to be famous, and I'm telling you her. Obviously, I'm not going to do that. Okay. Now, out of the discussion we are having, one Mahajanpada emerged as the most powerful and was able to dominate everyone. and that is Magad. See, Magad was a monarchy, and in a way it was the strength of the monarchies that most of the oligarchies and Ganasanghas were conquered by Magad. But Magad had multiple strategic, what we call as location, access to resources, and society and political aspects, which allowed it to do it. So Magad, the first major advantage it had was location. Its first capital is a place called Rajgir, which is near Patna today. And then it will become a place called Patliputra. And for centuries, Patliputra is going to be the capital of all powers till we talk about the post-Gupta period, where Kannauj is going to become important. But Patliputra is going to be very, very important. The advantage which Magad has is strategic location, because firstly, Magad was based on a plateau. Is on the Chota Nagpur plateau. And therefore, on all sides, it could see anybody coming from a distance. So it was based on a certain height. Then it is also surrounded by 3 rivers on each side. So Magad, you have on one side the Ganga, the other side the Son, and on one side the Champa. So in a way, there was only one way to enter into the Magadhian sector, and that too was a plateau. And in strategic military history, you would know, to be on higher ground is better. Magad also had access to iron ore, and for that same reason, they had the best weapons and most volume also. Wherein they had the access to the what we call today as the Jharkhand mines, iron ore mines, and they were able to get a lot of access to iron itself. Most volume means most amount of quantity, most amount of weapons made. Now clear? Magad also, because it was a monarchy, was able to have centralized power. And if that was not enough, it was also based on a trade route. And basically, during the 6th century BCE, what will happen is that 2 routes will emerge in India. 2 major routes will emerge in India. One will be called the Uttar Path, and the other one will call the Dakshin Path. Uttar Patha and Dakshin Patha. Uttar Path used to connect the Central Asian sector with Patliputra as the most important node. So the Uttar Path having 2 different sectors, and ironically the Indian Railways today also has the same 2 lines in North India. One is called the northern sector of Uttar Path, the other one is called the southern sector of Uttar Path, wherein one used to go from Lahore, Jalandhar, Saharanpur, Gorakhpur, and then Bihar, Bengal. So some trains in North India goes from via Gorakhpur. and the other one is Lahore, Rawalpindi, Bhatinda, and then goes south, which is Delhi, Kanpur, Lucknow, Varanasi, Allahabad, and then Patliputra. So you can take two types of trains, one which goes to Gorakhpur or one which goes to Allahabad, which is Prayagraj. So very simply, the two lines which exist of the railways is actually based on the two major parts in which Uttar Path used to be there. But if you see that both lines converge at Patliputra, and the Dakshin Path used to then connect the Patliputra sector to Kaushambi and then to the southern parts of India and its ports. So the Dakshin Path and the Uttar Path will emerge, and internal and external trade will become very, very important. And with the rise of internal external trade, Magad will also gain a lot of prosperity. So Magad had a very, very, very good location, and it was able to dominate Kosala and Vatsya and Avanti, the three rivals of it, because of the fact that it had good leaders also, but it also had good locations. And herein comes the importance of leaders. See, Magad had strategic location, three rivers, iron ore, trade route. Anybody has any issue here? Because I want to discuss the monarchs who are going to become important. Any issue here? No. So the real power comes because of three very important rulers of the Magad area. Trade routes mean land routes of trade. Now, there were three families which ruled Magad. One is called the Haryanka, second is called Shishunga, and last is called Nanda. Haryanka, Shishunga, Nanda. HSN. Just have to remember this. Comes in the examination standard. Now, I really don't care about these dates. I've given you these dates, but I really don't care about them. What I care about are four people in this story. One is a person called Bimbisara, then Ajatshatru, Udayan, Kalasoka, and Dhanananda. Now, you will say, why are you only pointing out to these four, or rather five? See, Bimbisara is the one who established this whole dynasty, Magad as what it was. So he's the founder, and he's the first one to have a proper standing army. Bimbisara and Ajatshatru. Bimbisara and Ajatshatru, coming from the Haryanka dynasty itself, were the ones who were also contemporaries of Buddha. They lived along with Buddha and Mahavira. Basically, Mahavira and Buddhist texts and Jain texts talk about Bimbisara and Ajatshatru quite a lot. Udayan is the one who shifted capital from Rajgir to Pataliputra. Kalasoka is important because I will tell you, when I will teach you Buddhist councils, he will be one of the persons who will call that council. And Dhanananda, I want you to remember, because Dhanananda is related to Alexander and Chandragupta Maurya. So I don't want you to remember anyone else, but these five people, three dynasties, five people: Bimbisara, Ajatshatru, Udayan, Kalasoka, and Dhanananda. You don't have to learn their names literally, because prelims oriented understanding we need. You should be able to identify them for sure. For the next 2-3 days, I want you to remember till Monday after Diwali. Happy Diwali to all of you. which is after Monday. On Monday, I will take the name of Dhanananda and Kalasoka again. I will take the name of Kalasoka and Dhanananda again. So, after you have come out of the Diwali fervor, I don't want you to ask me who, what, that, this, Dhanananda, Sisunga, Haranka. This much you need to know. Can you promise me this much at least? That you will remember over the weekend these 4 names. Yes, perfect. Thank you, and thank you. Now, before we go to Buddhism, Jainism, just to point it out to you, and I'll give you a timeline in the end. The Mahajanpada phase, the 6th century BC, is till today considered the most important period for trade, but also currency first coinage or currency will emerge, and for the first time in the Indian subcontinent we will have what are called the punch marked coins, which I will show you when I'll do art and culture. First coins, because they used to have 5 symbols on the front, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 1, very irregular sizes, but silver coins. For the first time, currency emerges in the Indian subcontinent. So the literary evidence and the evidence coming out of archaeological evidences tell us that there were coins and there were different names. Currency means only coin. There cannot be paper currency, obviously. So currency means coins at this point of time. And there are terms such as Kahapana, Nikka, Kamsa, Maska, and Kanika, which basically are there. This is not introduced by Bimbisara, it is introduced by all of these Mahajanpadas. All Mahajanpadas issue silver coins. Together, we call them punch-marked coins. And Dasa-Dasi tradition is still there. Urban centers will emerge, and that is why it's called the second urbanization. So these 3 dynasties all belong to Magad. Yes, a single kingdom can be ruled by multiple families. That is dynasties. So now we will also have terms emerge in the texts, which till today we use. There will be multiple terms which will be used in the texts. Pura, Nagar, Nigam, Rajdhani, Mahanagar, and these are terms which will till today use. So you have Pura as a small town. You can have a Nigama and a Nagara. Do we use these words today? Nigam, Nagar, we use these terms. And over that you have a Mahanagar, and the Rajdhani word is also coming from here. You have the fact that Pura and towns, Pura is a town. Then you have Nigam, Nagar. These are towns with fortifications or commercial towns. Nigam is mostly a commercial town. Nagar is a small town with fortifications. Mahanagar is a very big town. And then you have the Rajdhanis, which are the capitals. The most known Mahanagars, Champa, Rajgir, you have Sarvasti, Saketa, which is Ayodhya. Thereafter Kaushambi and Varanasi. So Nigam and Nagar at the same level, small cities, but one has fortification, one has commercial purpose. Mahanagar would be above Nagar itself, and then you have Rajdhani. See, don't have to get flustered with all these different texts or these terms. What I'm trying to show you here is a lot of the things which you use today as your existence, or the terminologies which you use today, are actually having genesis in these periods. Nigam, Nagar, Mahanagar, Rajdhani are words which we use till today. And for the first time, the texts reflect that. Now, what I want to do now with you is very simple. 6th century BC, three aspects are done. Magad, the Mahajanpadas, trade and Panchmark coins. I want to now go into Buddhism, Jainism, but no way it is going to get completed within half an hour. But there's a backstory to Buddhism, Jainism, which I want to discuss. Once I'm done with the backstory of Buddhism, Jainism, I will make a timeline for you which will summarize the three classes we've done till today. And that is going to be something very significant for you for revision. If everybody is on board with me and if everybody is comfortable with what we are doing, I know there are terms, I know there are facts, but you don't have to run away from them. You just have to learn them systematically. Now, what I want to do here is I want to go into module number 3 and start Buddhism, Jainism, and Ajivikism. But for that, as always, module number 3, you have to refer to R.S. Sharma and 12th class NCERT. Every chapter is always indicated in the beginning of that module. But I want to discuss why would Buddhism, Jainism emerge and Ajivikism emerge. For that, a little bit of philosophical understanding we have to go into, and that I want to now go into in that regard. How we came to know about it means which sources. We have literary sources, Jain and Buddhist texts. We have archaeological evidences, this city still exists. We have the coins which are still there. So there are multiple evidences. No, Shreya. Can we start our discussion? This is a very interesting discussion which we are going to have. And basically, nobody is going to ask you this, but it is very significant for your understanding. Now, see, if you ask Buddhism, Jainism, why did they emerge? They will give you very big fundas. Moral corruption, this, that. Very big ideas they will give. But if you go down to the grassroots level and analyze, you will realize that there's much more at play than just only moral corruption and these things. In order to understand that, let's try to understand what Vedic Brahmanism was doing to the society. See, Vedic Brahmanism had created a system of the Varna system, or what we call the fourfold Varna system. Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Now, one thing is very clear, that this system is rigid. This system is rigid. And they are separated from each other in a way. They're the first, second, third, fourth. Now, if I am a Kshatriya, I have all the wealth in the world. I have all the power in the world. But I still remain second in the ritualistic ranking. In the ritualistic ranking, I am still second. So, I can be a very big king, but still the Purohit will be given more, the Pandit will be given, the Brahmin will be given more respect than me. Because I am a Kshatriya. In the ritualistic ranking, I am second. And in the period of 6th century BCE, trade has re-emerged. Trade has re-emerged. Kshatriya ruling class. Yes, Kshatriya ruling class. But you could be the ruling class, but you remain subordinated to the Brahmins. You remain subordinated to the Brahmins. Now in 6th century BCE, the trade will emerge. Trade will benefit which class? Trade will benefit which Varna rather? Which Varna will benefit a lot of out of trade? Very good. Revivalism of trade benefits the Vaishyas. Benefits the Vaishyas. So power is concentrated here, and wealth will start to get concentrated here. But a Vaishya, he can be as rich as possible, but still he will remain third. He still remains third. So you can be anybody of that. You can be the Jeff Bezos of 6th century BCE. But when a Brahmin walks, you don't walk. You have to give power or respect to the Brahmin. There's no mobility. There's no mobility. Now, basically, there is a frustration which is building up. In the Kshatriya and the Vaishya community. And one more thing is that Vaishyas have a problem in the way Vedic Brahmanism has a certain problem with trade. Because under Vedic Brahmanism and the Vedas, if you leave your native place, you lose your Varna. The concept of Sat Samundar Par, which is if you cross water bodies, there's a concept of impurity which comes through. That if you leave your village, if you leave your city, if you are crossing water bodies, you will lose Varna. Gandhi did it. And Gandhi was, for the same reason, Gandhi did not come back to India. Because when he was going to study to London, his community straight away said that if you are going to London, then don't come back because you will lose your caste, your Varna. Same thing, it is a Vedic Brahmanistic notion. Now, if I'm a trader and my work is trade, if I'm a soldier and my work is to fight wars, I will obviously cross water bodies and leave my place. Yes or no? Trade cannot happen by sitting at one place. So now the Brahmins always tend to ostracize or have certain rituals which you need to do when you come back. So there is a lot of frustration which is building up with the current social order. The social order as it is, there is a lot of problems in the Kshatriya community about how Varna system is working and how the Vaishya community is always getting ostracized. It's not that they don't want external trade to happen. Within Vedic Brahmanism, purity is important. And for them, the reason why the third position is given to Vaishyas is because of the fact that they are linked to trade. Now, this is the frustration. We all can understand that frustration. We all can understand that frustration in the Kshatriya. Does anybody not understand the frustration in the Vaishya and the Kshatriya community? Do we understand that frustration? Yes or no? Yes? Now, in the Vedas, religion is about no, Rahul, you're incorrect, but don't worry about it. You're incorrect, but don't worry about that. When we talk about religion, the most important aspect is liberation, or what is called as moksha. See, it is believed that we all have a body, we have a soul, and our soul needs to get liberated. It is a part of God, and salvation will come when my soul is not going to go through this process of birth, rebirth, birth, rebirth, birth, rebirth. The soul basically changes bodies like we can change clothes, and therefore Moksha is what is the target of everyone. So the concept is very straightforward. We all want moksha or salvation or nirvana, which is the fact that soul should end rebirth and birth cycle. Is it true or not? I don't care. And this is something which all religions talk about, which is what happens after death. Now, if you go to a Vedic Brahmanist, or if you go to Vedic Brahmanism, for them, the Brahmin says, if you ask him a question, how can I get moksha? His answer is going to be ritual sacrifice. दान दक्षिणा कीजिए, मोक्ष मिल जाएगा. You will get moksha. Now, for everything, they have a sacrifice. For everything, they have a ritual. So the path which the Vedic Brahmanism is talking about is the concept of punya. That you get punya by doing ritual sacrifice, ritual sacrifice, ritual sacrifice. But are rituals and sacrifices free? If the Brahmin says, feed 1,000 Brahmins, will it be a cheap affair? No. Basically, Vedic Brahmanism is obsessed by rituals and sacrifice, and these are expensive sacrifices and rituals. So we all want moksha, which is nirvana. We all want our body, once our soul leaves our body, to become part of God. And we all want our afterlife to be better. But the only way the Brahmin tells us is through ritual and sacrifice, which itself only certain varnas can do. For example, not every ritual can be done by a Vaishya, not every ritual can be done by, no rituals can be done by Shudras. So let's try to bring these two stories together. Vedic Brahmanism is the prevalent social order and religion. It has produced two things: a rigid four varna system and the path to salvation is rituals and sacrifices. And basically people are frustrated by both. The Kshatriyas are frustrated as they have power but not ritualistic position, and the Vaishyas have wealth due to second urbanization, but they have no position or respect. And the path prescribed by Vedic Brahmanism is socially exclusionary, and at the same point of time, it is also expensive and based on Brahmin domination. Now, it is in this context that Ajiviks, Buddhism and Jainism, and specifically Buddhism and Jainism, will emerge. Ironically, Shudras nobody cares about. The fact is, Buddhism, Jainism will now find constituencies in these people. Tell me one thing. What is the most important factor for a religion to survive and flourish? What is the most important factor? For religion to emerge and survive, what is the most important factor? Support and prescription. If a religion does not have followers, then what is it a religion? So Buddhism, Jainism needed a constituency. Who can they actually target in the society to become popular religions? And I'll tell you, within the Buddhist and Jain understanding of social hierarchy, guess who are at the top of the table and second rank in this structure? It is the Kshatriyas. In Buddhism, Jainism, Kshatriyas are given the first position. There are no Brahmins. And the Vaishyas are given the second most important position. And that is why you will see that Buddhism, Jainism is going to become the most popular religion in the Indian subcontinent and the most popular religion amongst the traders. And that is why till today, certain commercial communities are either Jain or Buddhist. So whilst Buddhist and Jains will talk about another aspect, I will tell you that. But this is the larger politics. In a way, both Buddhism and Jainism are conservative also. Because they don't talk about the Shudras. It's all power politics. So don't think that Buddhism and Jainism emerges as out. It gives. What Buddhism and Jainism does, see, what Buddhism, Jainism does is they give alternative paths to moksha and salvation. But this could only become relevant and popular if people wanted it. Try to understand this point. Buddhism, Jainism could have emerged randomly. But for them to become what they were during the ancient period, it is important that Buddha and Mahavira, Buddhism and Jainism, remain linked to and are finding constituency in the two frustrated groups of the Vedic Brahmanistic society. So people, see, in PSIR, people have argued, see, if you say that Buddhism is the rebel child of Hinduism, it is against rigid caste practice, that is the PSIR type understanding. Too simplistic. See, I'll be very honest with you. You would think that Buddhism, Jainism are path breaking. I will tell you a very interesting thing, and you will then tell me, is Buddhism, Jainism actually very progressive? Vedic Brahmanism discriminates against women, yes or no? Yes or no? We'll discuss that eventually. We'll discuss that. Yes or no? In Jain philosophy, it is believed that a woman cannot get salvation. The only way a female gets salvation is when she is reborn as a man and then she does Jain practices and then gets salvation. Is this very forward-looking? It says that only way a woman gets salvation is to be reborn as a man and then get salvation. Buddha was never very, very, very keen for allowing women into the Sangha. but it is his aunt and his mother who forced Buddha to open the Sangha to women. So please don't think of both these religions as a new refreshing air. No, this is why I'm having this discussion. Nobody is going to ask you a question out of this area. I'm literally having a conversation with you at an academic level. Sangha is the monastic establishment of the Buddha. I'm having a conversation wherein I'm trying to decode something for you. Nobody is asking you these things. This is out of syllabus literally. But I believe that you should know that it is all power politics. Because yes, if you ask Buddhism, Jainism, they will not say this. They will give you an argument which is called materialism. If you go by Buddhist Jain texts, they will say we had to emerge because of materialistic practices. Can I talk about the reason which the Buddhists and the Jains give? Are we clear with regards to the power politics of Buddhism, Jainism, and Ajivikism? Now, if you ask the Buddhists and the Jains, why was there a need for Buddhism, Jainism to rise? They say that because in 6th century BCE, there's a lot of prosperity, there's a lot of money. Therefore, there was moral corruption, there was sorrow, inequality, death, what we call as corruption of values, and Buddhism and Jainism emerge in order to bring back value and morals, and that could come via moksha, nirvana. So basically they will argue that they wanted to bring back everybody on the same track. They're like, corruption ho gaya, there's a lot of corruption, we want to bring everybody back on the right track, and therefore there's a need for us. No, yes, Aniket, you can say that. So if you talk about how did Buddhism, Jainism emerge, they will talk about this, which is materialism, obsession with money, sorrow, paisa nahi, pure, literally dying and sorrow, death, destruction. And we argue that it is basically the rise of mercantile classes because of the second urbanization, which do not agree with the orthodox Brahmanical tradition, and therefore with the so-called very heavy, not so-called, but the very heavy crystallization of Varna identity, there was a need for a new social outlook, which Buddhism, Jainism, and Ajivikism was able to give. So are we clear with regards to why did Buddhism, Jainism, and Ajivikism emerge? And I will talk about the Ajiviks and stop today. Are you saying Buddhism, Jainism support materialism? No. They are against materialism. They argue that because there was materialism, there was a need to fight. Because there was materialism, there was a need to fight. It's the other way around. See, Buddhists and Jains obviously will not go and say in your ears that Kshatriyas and Vaishyas were very, very frustrated. We used them, obviously. Rather, they will say everybody was very, 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 very frustrated generally. Moral corruption is there. Dukh hai, dukh. Sorrow. We will remove that sorrow from you. Materialism is your obsession, what you are, what most of the people are today. Paisa, money, car, house. We all die being materialistic. That I want the best car, the best house, the best phone. So very simply, they will say that we want to remove this aspect of how people are so obsessed with the worldly. The point is, for every solution for the Brahmin was ritual sacrifice. So very simply, see, Anjali, understand this point. When you're talking about Buddhism in colonial India, when you're talking about Buddhism in medieval India, when you're talking about Buddhism in the late period, you're talking about a different type of Buddhism. I'm talking about core Buddhism. What Buddhism is today and Jainism is today is not what they were at this point of time. Because Buddhism, Jainism will go through a proper way of evolution. In a way, they will be very important between 6th century BC till the Gupta period. But after the Gupta period, Hinduism will emerge, Puranic Hinduism will emerge, and literally take power away from the Buddhists. And thereafter, Buddhism became, and until today, is considered a subset of Hinduism. I'll discuss that aspect with you. Don't go into the politics of it. I want to just talk about why was there, or how did Buddhism and Jainism emerge, and why was there a need for it. I will show you throughout these classes how Buddhism, Jainism will become very powerful and thereafter will lose ground to Puranic Hinduism or Hinduism. Did they care about the Shudras? No. No. The rhetoric within Buddhist and Jain texts are all about Vaishya community and the Kshatriya community. The conservatism of Brahminism with regards to Shudras was also there. And with regards to women, maybe a little bit more space was given to women in Buddhism, Jainism, but it was not radically different in that sense. Are we clear with these aspects? Are we clear about this? Yes? Okay. Now, I'll consolidate what we've done till this point because there's no point teaching Ajivikism. So I'll rather consolidate. See, since you started the classes with me, we have come a long way. And I have given you at least 2 to 3 firsts. Brahminism gave place to women. Never. That is the biggest issue. Vedic Brahminism gives a place to women lower than even certain places Shudras. Mesolithic, Neolithic. See, understand this point. Conservatism of this age is absorbed by Buddhism, Jainism. That is the problem. But they are alternative ways of looking at salvation and taking away the power away from the Brahmins. That is the basic point. So it's all power politics. It's all a certain context in which they rise. That's the point I'm trying to argue. So there's an innocent answer to this question and there's a political answer to this question. That is what you need to understand. Was there materialism which frustrated? No, there's not. Materialism is for the society. That society is materialistic. We want to change them. Buddhists talk about how you will give up everything, then only you will get salvation. I'll tell you that. Buddhist philosophy, Jain philosophy, I will discuss with you. Just hold on to this fact that there's a frustration which is building up and there was a need for a new social outlook which Buddha and Mahavira will fill. Okay. Now I'm consolidating everything we've been doing since Wednesday when we met for the first time. So Mesolithic, Paleolithic, Neolithic, Indus Valley, Vedic age, early Vedic, later Vedic, and Mahajanpadas, or what we call as 6th century BCE. This is what we covered. I have brought you a very long way chronologically because we started at 2 million BCE. Then we reached 10,000. Then we reached 4,000. Then we reached 6,000 or 2,600. Then we reached 1,500. Then 1,000. And now 600 to 500. And in this story of coming from Paleolithic to Mahajanpadas, we have seen the gradual progression of how India will emerge as a civilization. So, in the Paleolithic period, there is no state, hunting, gathering, there is fire, There's bulky tools. Thereafter, in the Mesolithic period, we see the domestication of animals. This is the first thing which happens with burials and rituals, with microliths. Thereafter, we went to the Neolithic period, where we saw for the first time the poison called agriculture emerge. With agriculture came complex society. With complex society came sedentary life. With sedentary life came early state formation. And we also had agricultural tools and pottery emerge. Then we move to the first urbanization of India, in which we get a mature state, but we don't know the nature. Thereafter, we get trade for the first time, both internal and external. We get naturalistic religion, and we have town planning and urbanization of the Indian subcontinent. Till this point, something is very clear, that in this whole period, there is no currency, no taxation, and no coins. And basically, we are mostly reliant on archaeological records. Thereafter emerges the early Vedic society based on the Vedas. And now things change. Pastoralism, tribal polity, chieftain, you have egalitarianism, Sabha Samiti Vidhata, men are equal to women, naturalistic religion. They knew only stone. They knew copper, stone, and bronze. But from this point forward, iron was known. But one thing is very clear, that still no taxation, no currency, no coins in the society. Thereafter, we came to the later Vedic period, which is the genesis of all issues in India, which is we came up with monarchical system, monarchical, hereditary, territorial kingship, agriculture, Vedic Brahmanism. We also saw men becoming very, very, very powerful to women, and Shudra and women social discrimination. Here it was cattle which was important. Here it became land. And one thing is very clear, that still both of them, there is no trade. However, iron was used extensively, and taxation in the form of bhaga will emerge. the most important Varna system will emerge. And whilst all of these features will keep on evolving into the 6th century BCE, 6th century BCE, we have finally a revival of trade and first currency in the form of the punch marked coins. If that was not enough, 3 new religions will emerge, which we will discuss on Monday, which is Buddhism, Jainism, Ajivikism. Now, do you get it what we are trying to do through ancient India? I am basically bringing you till 2023. And with every passing module and era or period, you see, smaller and more important elements of the Indian society are getting added. In a way, we are time traveling. We are trying to understand what made India what it is today. And this is basically your genetic code of India, where things are emerging, where are the firsts. All the firsts are in front of you. First state is here. Then first domestication of animals is here. First agriculture is here. The aspect of first coinage is here. First trade is here. So, very simply, you are seeing a snapshot of your own past. And I hope all of this has been making sense to you. So, I'll stop here today. Happy Diwali to all of you. Have a safe one. And if you are in and around Delhi, please don't burst crackers. As it is, people are choking. The last thing is your own stubble burning. Thereafter, have a safe one and enjoy this weekend. I'll see you Monday morning. As much as you don't want to be Monday morning after day after Diwali to be in the class, I'll be here. We'll take the story forward and we will now discuss next week. We will finish ancient by discussing Buddhism, Jainism, Maurya, post-Maurya, Gupta, and post-Gupta. So we will come back on Monday and complete the story. Right? Saturday, Sunday, I just want you to go through this on in Diwali evening. Just revise this one slide. If it makes sense to you, I'll see you on Monday morning. Thank you. Take care and bye-bye. See you Monday. Some of you maybe in the evening, but happy Diwali. And please do take care of yourself. And remember, crackers is what not make Diwali. It is the thought of it. Okay. IVC was again we go ritualistic. Yes, ritualistic religion, which is ritualism. IVC is naturalism, naturalistic religion. Shudras could convert to Buddhism, Jainism, but in very rare case. Okay. Right. If you don't have a question, you can leave the session. Thank you. Was Varna system a reason for belief of impurity of blockade? No, Kishan, you're bringing Chola and all into this. Chola and Magad should not be taken in the same breath together. Same notion Buddha. We will discuss that. We will discuss that. Wait, see, not right now. When we talk about Puranic Hinduism. Mesolithic last part is microlith. They use stone. How did Princely occupy the high position? Because Deepika, if you will read the text and perpetuate it, you will give yourself the first position, right? In which period humans began to cover their body? Paleolithic period only. What is the significance of IVC if it has no impact on our present and knowledge? Shreyansh, it is part of the Indian civilization. It is the oldest civilization in the Indian subcontinent. So impact se kya matlab hai? Doesn't really matter. Significance is that it showed that when the world was more or less not able to figure out anything, first urbanization happened in India. Ritika, nobody cares about that. Okay. So see you on Monday. Take care and bye-bye. If Vedas were written later, how did priests and Rajan justify their claim on power and status? Deepika, because they are first creating the system, they are linking it to divine power, and then the Vedas which you see are Vedas were oral traditions. There are oral traditions later written down. So the written text will come later, but the oral tradition will always be there. Sure, Kishan, not an issue. Okay, thank you. Take care. Bye bye. Happy Diwali.